Okay, this thing is deadly. Let's build it. What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm gonna be showing you my Blackmagic Pocket 6K Cinema Rig build out. Whew, that's a mouthful. Let's get into it. All right, so first things first, I keep my Blackmagic entire build here in this 1485 Pelican Air case. Now for transferring this entire build, this is the case I recommend, and it pretty much stores everything except a few components that you can just store in your camera bag. But I'm gonna give you guys a top-down view of this, and if you wanna configure your case and your build out the exact same as mine, this is what you should be getting. All right, so this is gonna be a pretty long video, but I'm gonna walk you step by step and give you all the pieces linked into the description below. So the first piece you're gonna want is this little toolkit from Small Rig. This thing has every little piece that helps you assemble your camera, and this is my #1 recommendation. The next big thing, of course, is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K. I am so excited to have this thing. All right, so the major start to any build is going to be the cage. Now, if you watch my A7 III build out, one, I'm gonna link it up there. Go watch it after this if you have an A7 III, but I went ahead and pre-installed a few things on the cage just to make this whole video process a lot faster. So the first thing here that I've installed is the actual HDMI and USB-C clamp for the cables. The next thing was the actual NATO rail for this Small Rig handle that's going on the side of this thing. And also 2 Peak Design base plates for the camera strap. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this put in the cage and we can get started. All right, so we have that in place, and the next thing I'm gonna do is install the base plate that's gonna let me attach the 15mm rods to the bottom of my camera. The base plate I have is from Canvate, and it's the same one used in my A7 III build. Super handy, lets me attach rods and adjust their heights, and is essential. Let's get this attached. All right, so now that the base plate is attached to the camera, you can just slide it actually in place. It locks right in. All right, so now that we got the base plate attached, I'm gonna attach the SSD holder to the camera. So I've done my research for you guys, and I decided on this Canvate SSD holder over the Small Rig one that comes with the camera if you buy the bundle that's linked in the description. So the thing about the Small Rig one is it hits when you try to tighten. Like, the actual design of it has these 2 bars hitting each other, and I can't really tighten my SSD down. So I decided to chunk that and go with a Canvate one because it has an actual Allen key to tighten the cord port and an actual twist on for the drive. So let's get this attached. So the thing about where I'm attaching this that you're going to want to note is I'm attaching this on the back left screw in the last little port, because the way this has to sit cannot hit the handle, and I'm going to show you that in just a second. So I'm gonna have this as far left as possible. This is what's gonna be a little unorthodox about my build. Okay, now that we have that tightened, I'm gonna attach the handle. The handle is the same Small Rig handle that is used in my last build, and just like the last build, I went ahead and attached the monitor mount to this handle just to save us some time. So the great thing about the Small Rig cage for the Pocket Cinemas is it has a NATO rail up front that lets you just slide this handle on. And so this handle is going to sit right next to this tightening drive, and I'll show you how that works in a second. So now I have the handle attached, I'm gonna install the 15mm rods onto the bottom. So I decided to go with 16-inch 15mm rods. These are gonna be linked down below, but these are gonna help you for mounting everything because the lens I'm using is kind of long, and the only way you're gonna be able to run this rig is with 16-inch ones. You can run 12-inch, but you're gonna be making a sacrifice whether on the front or the back with space. Let's get these installed. So now I want to install the base plate for the VMount battery. The base plate that I'm going with is the same base plate from my last video. So this thing has all the ports that I actually need to power the camera, the follow focus, and the monitor. So we're gonna get this attached. All right, so the way we attach this, we're gonna attach this backwards than normal and lay it flat. That way the VMount battery sits on top of it. All right, so the VMount battery we're gonna go with is the 95 watt-hour D&O battery. Now, I don't know if they sell this anymore, so I'm gonna link a newer one in the description if I can find it, but I would recommend getting either a 150 or a 180 watt-hour because that's just gonna last a lot longer, and it's gonna make the weight of the setup a lot more balanced. But let's get this installed. So of course, the VMount battery just slides in place. Okay, the next thing I wanna attach is the actual lens. All right, so the lens I've decided to go with is the Sigma 18 to 35 millimeter 1.8. This lens is quite the beast, and I've attached a polarizing neutral density filter on it, a variable ND filter on it, and it just lets you adjust the amount of light that's being let in. But this thing's a beast. I really, really love it. It's like having 3 prime lenses in one. So the Pocket Cinema camera is manual focus. So to help us out while focusing, we're gonna take a few steps. First step is adding a focus ring to the Sigma. This is just a standard focus ring that adds the little teeth onto the actual ring of the camera. So we're just gonna get that installed. All right, so once you have that installed, it should look a little something like this. Now, we are going to be using the Tilta Nano Nucleus, which is this awesome little wireless focus knob that as you turn the knob, it turns the lens. My mounting solution for this, most people mount it on the actual rails. I find that to be a little uncomfortable reaching down under the lens to grab my focus when I could just turn my focus ring. What I do is I mount mine on the actual right side of the camera. So Tilta is awesome. They send you a couple little mounting options for this thing. So we're just gonna put this rail right here on the side of the camera. All right, so once we have that tight, you can just drop your focus wheel right in there and lock it. The next part to the Tilta Nano Nucleus is the actual focus motor. We have the focus motor, it attaches to 15 millimeter rods and just gonna sit right up to the lens. So the important thing about this is you have to make sure the actual poles are close enough to the body of the camera. So that is where this little adjustment here comes into play, where it just lets us raise the height of the pose so that the actual motor makes contact with the lens. All right, as you can see here, as we turn the actual lens, the motor turns as well. So that is ready to go. Now I'm gonna add my monitor. The monitor that we're using is the small HD Focus 5. I love this monitor. It's bright enough for almost any situation, and it is super light and handy. It's not gonna add a lot of weight to our setup. So the monitor mount that we talked about earlier that goes on the handle, that's where this thing is gonna go. And I've also attached a cage to the actual small HD. Doesn't have the best build quality, so I decided to add a small rig cage just in case I want to mount anything else to it and help it mount to the actual rig. And of course, the next part to mounting the monitor is mounting the actual sunshade for the monitor. I love this little thing. It just helps add that little bit more shade for helping this monitor see in bright daylight. Okay, so this rig build out is almost finished. We have to add a few more things. First thing I want to add is the actual SSD drive. So I recommend getting the Samsung T5 drive. The great thing about the BlackMagic is it can write straight to SSDs, and you 100% should be getting an SSD. They're a lot cheaper than the CFast cards, but do almost exactly the same thing. If you can get the actual lever to just face this way, you can actually slide your fingers in between it and it shouldn't actually interfere with the handle. That is probably the one small sacrifice you have to make while getting the Camvate SSD mount, because the small rig one just sits right off to the left side, but I wanted access to my left handle and the Camvate just kind of came in clutch. One of the last things we have to install is the handle. Now, I'm going to wait to install this handle. This is the small rig NATO rail clamp handle. Really convenient, slides right in on and off, but I have to wire everything up from the left side and the handle kind of gets in the way. So we wire first and then we attach this to secure everything in place. So the cable that you're gonna want to use to power the camera is just a 2-pin to DC port. Get the coiled version because you don't want it to be too long and dangling everywhere. So to actually install this, we're going to lock this into the camera, locked in place. And we're gonna plug it right here into the DC port that says camera. Please don't plug it into a high voltage port, or if you get this battery pack, just plug it into one that says camera because you can short out your camera. The next thing we wanna do is power the monitor. So here we have a battery eliminator for the Sony NPF battery that we're just gonna install by attaching it to the back of the monitor to the D-tap port on the battery. And the actual D-tap port is right here on the back. Plug that in. So now to get an HDMI signal to the actual camera from the monitor, I custom ordered a micro HDMI to HDMI from Small HD. Now, you can get a cheaper alternative and just use a micro to HDMI adapter. I'd rather just use one cable. Prices are relatively the same, but this just makes things a lot more simpler if it's all in one cable. So the great thing here is we're just gonna run this through the actual HDMI clamp and port and run it into the actual small HD monitor. The next thing I want to do is hook up the SSD drive to the camera. The SSD cord that I've chosen is a custom one off Amazon. It's this super thin, super like flexible and crazy short USB-C to USB-C cord. You may want to get a longer one, but this one is just long enough. I'll have it linked in the description below, but pick and choose. I prefer this one because it keeps the cable mess down. So at this point, there's a couple things that you can do. The camera has room for a mini XLR port, and usually what I do is I run this boom mic through mini XLR using this cable into the side of the camera. But currently I can't do that because I'm actually using this boom mic. So I'm gonna be probably showing B-roll footage of the actual mic being attached after the fact. But that would probably be the last thing I would add to the cameras for audio solutions. And now using the NATO rail that we pre-installed earlier, we're going to attach our small HD handle just to give us a little bit more grip. One last thing that I almost forgot is powering the actual focus wheel. To power the focus wheel, I just have a little USB cable, USB to micro USB. I'll just link it down below. Okay, so real quick, I just attached a dummy microphone here so you can get the full effect of how this thing looks and feels once it's completed. This is a beast of a rig. Now this is my new production setup, and once it's all done, you should be able to just, yeah. This is my favorite thing to do. Pulling focus is a lot easier with the Tilt Nano. I 100% recommend getting it if you're going to have a BlackMagic rig like this. Man, I almost forgot. You're gonna wanna add a Peak Design camera strap to your build. That way you can run and gun with this thing all day without having to actually tote it around. This thing can get pretty heavy. That way this thing's weight can be supported by the strap, especially if you're shooting. It's almost like a shoulder mount. It just makes it a lot more stable when I'm getting shots and my hand is free to pull focus. See, I know I was gonna teach you something. But that's it, guys. This is my full BlackMagic Pocket Cinema 6K build out. This thing is a beast. This is my new production setup for all of my client work, some wedding B-roll work, and I don't know. I'm picking it a lot more over my Sony a7 III just because of the raw output power this thing has. I'd love to do some more video work and talk about this thing more in a future video, but right now this video is long enough. So if you learned something, make sure to subscribe because I'm going to be bringing you more content just like this. And hey, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out and it helps me be in favor of the YouTube algorithm. And that's pretty much all I have for you today, guys. So I will be seeing you in the next one. Peace.